Between the folded layers of mountain valleys, nature is taking its natural course once again, as plowed fields have become grazing for white rhinos, and floodplains the domain of herds of game. This is Imbambala, one of the most attractive destinations in the heart of South Africa's wild country.
I'm Ashley Dowds, and this is my Africa, my home. I dig deep into the past to make sense of the present. I explore the natural environment to find the driving force behind my continent's attraction. But it hides another face, an elusive side filled with excitement and packed with adventure.
This used to be big cattle country, but the farmers in those days didn't believe that wildlife and cattle could mix. So the solution was to just get rid of the wildlife. Times changed, and so did attitudes. And in the 1960s, there was a major drive to repopulate state-owned and private land with wildlife. Catchment areas around dams or man-made lakes, almost as a rule, are declared game reserves. And when the Elephants River was dammed, 148 square kilometers was declared a wildlife sanctuary. So this is Loskop Dam. It was built in about 1938 to feed an intensive agricultural irrigation system. Food demand in the 70s got to a real peak, and they had to lift the walls of the dam to about 54 meters from 45. So just in terms of the scale, we're looking at about 2,300 hectares. It's pretty massive. They say it's one of the biggest dams in the Southern Hemisphere. And the buffer zone around this reservoir became known as the Loskop Dam Nature Reserve. One of the conservation efforts was to have this reserve back to its former glory, and that happened over a very short space of time. Game was roaming freely, but there was one beautiful creature missing from the African savanna. A few minutes' drive from the dam wall, Delicia Gunn has been running an aviary for quite a few years. Her mission is to reintroduce Southern Ground Hornbills back into the region.
Units that they have.
These birds have become endangered, mostly due to habitat destruction, and they're extremely slow breeders. Ground hornbills usually hatch 2 young, of which the youngest almost as a rule dies. These birds rarely raise more than 1 chick every 8 to 10 years under normal conditions. So Delicia joined a group that collected the second chick and hand-reared it to boost the population increase. So you have how many birds now?
At the moment here on Loskop, I've got 26 birds.
From the original 2?
No, not from the original 2. A lot of these birds are actually made up of harvested second hatch chicks that have been harvested from the APNR or Kruger, which are then brought to Loskop or Monte Cassino or Joburg Zoo, and they get hand-reared there.
So how many birds are out here in this reserve?
The Loskop Reserve doesn't have any birds. Apparently they did used to occur here in the early 70s, 1970s. But once we'd built the dam wall, the preferred lower areas got flooded. And then they raised the dam wall again, which then flooded even more of the low areas. So their habitat actually got destroyed. But the reserve, through the many years now, the reserve has actually got bigger and bigger, and we're now standing at 24,000 hectares. And this is actually where the project has come from, is to put the birds back onto this reserve, which we will hopefully be doing towards the beginning of summer this year.
Well, I have 24,000 hectares to explore, and for the next few days I'll be staying in a secluded bush camp called Imbambala. By road, it's 28 clicks from the dam wall, a 4-hour drive on bush tracks on a good day. So I opted for a boat transfer. Hey, Cappy.
How's it?
Ashley.
Nice to meet you, Ashley.
Sawubona. Aangename kennis.
Someone.
Yeah, so this is the way to get to your camp, is it?
How about boat? Yeah, it's much easier.
We have an easy 14-kilometer trip to our camp, a half-hour drive. That is, unless we see something interesting on the way there.
Yeah, Cappy, I've never been here. I've heard a lot about Loskop, but never ventured out here. I've never really known what there is available until I discovered you guys.
Well, I think that's a problem with most South Africans. Most people in Joburg don't even know about this place.
And that is why Imbambala has maintained much of its exclusivity. It's not overcrowded. The bush camp is further isolated by the fact that it falls within a concession area.
What is this area over here? Is it restricted or something?
Yeah, it's a cable to keep the public out that use the dam. You know, people that stay at forever resorts that launch their boats and to fish on the dam. And it's a line to tell them that they're not allowed to pass it because it's a protected area.
As we move further from the public areas, wildlife appears all along the banks of the dam.
What are these, Cappy? New.
Yeah, they're wildebeest, yeah.
With adequate daylight left to take a detour, we opt for the long way around. The further we move away from civilization, the more relaxed the wildlife seems. And this rubs off on me.
Another day in Africa. This is the first boat trip that I'm making to go and view game. Now, usually when you go in a car or you go by foot, the animals are spooked and they move away. But during the boat trip, we've found that a lot of these animals are quite curious, actually. They come towards the boat rather than running away. So you get an amazing view of most of the animals on the shore here.
But we needn't worry about the land huggers. We need to keep an eye out for a pod of hippos that is slowly closing in on us.
So, Gabby, do you normally try and keep your distance from the hippo?
Yeah, we have to, because every animal has a comfort zone. The moment you get into that comfort zone, it starts feeling uncomfortable. So they either charge you or run away. But I'm not saying I know it, but I know more or less how far to stay away from it.
Comfort zone of a general hippo?
Any animal has a comfort zone.
Okay, but looking at this comfort zone over here, when do I start feeling uncomfortable?
When you see a wake coming towards us. See, that one's on the mother's back. See.
Hippos are downright dangerous, short-tempered animals that easily feel threatened and often attack without warning. And they're big, the third biggest land mammal that can weigh as much as 2 tons. To sustain those massive bodies, they eat as much as 68 kilograms of food per day, usually at night. But when the hunger pains gnaw at them, they'll venture out of the water in broad daylight to graze. Hippos are more relaxed when they're in the water, and should they feel threatened, they can stay submerged for up to 6 minutes. On our way in, we went past the little bay where the boats are beached, and I must admit, I didn't notice it earlier.
Now this is the perfect bush hideout. If you didn't know that these moorings were here, you wouldn't know that this place existed. So I'm going to catch up with Cappy, and he's going to give me my guidelines. They say every African fire has a different story to tell. Stories of ancient battles between wild animals and their fight for survival. And we're sitting here next to the bushveld television, as they call it. And we're surrounded by darkness.
Something stirs just outside the reach of the firelight, rustling dry winter grass. Our spotlight temporarily blinds one of the most elusive scavengers of Africa, a brown hyena.
Just look at this, it's a treasure of a morning.
The Elephants River snakes through a valley, and we follow its course in the hope of finding some rhinos. The water level of Loskop drops during the winter months, as this is a summer rainfall area. Fertile banks are exposed, where green grass shoots attract a magnitude of grazers.
What's amazing about coming here in the morning is not just the scenery and the mist on the water, which is quite spectacular on its own, but just the variety of waterfowl. It's like a highway for birds. Just a mixture of different bird life. And as we go along the river in the boat, they're all lifting off the water and making their own little patterns. And it's the world coming to life.
Monitor lizards are usually skittish, but a few of these big reptiles refuse to budge as they enjoy the early morning sun.
And these guys are living out in the cave there. These monitor lizards.
Yeah, they're actually sitting in the sun to warm up, to get their body temperature up.
Cappy, what are the odds of seeing a crocodile?
I know there's a big one up here, but not many. And most of them have died because of pollution.
Turning back the clock a few years, Loskop Dam used to have a healthy population of crocodiles, but untreated waste has been, and still is, released into the Elephant River.
They've got that stretchy.
This has a profound effect on the crocodile population, and studies by Dr. Hannes Buerter show that the chances of this population surviving are extremely slim. Over a period of several years, Hannes has kept a record of all these animals in Loskop, and he found that polluted fish that are eaten by crocs cause fatal disease amongst the big reptiles. Terrapins that are also cold-blooded remain sluggish until their bodies reach a certain temperature.
We also get the red-eared terrapin, which originates from America. They refer to it as a red-eared turtle, but it's actually a terrapin.
A pair of Egyptian geese complain bitterly about our presence, but a three-banded plover goes on its way as it searches the mud for insects. It is the perfect morning, but the rhinos elude us. As the morning gets older, the wildlife venture into the inner veldt, away from the water's edge, and we go back to camp to collect the game drive vehicle. Part of the attraction of Imbambala is its rustic appearance.
You know, I like these safari camps. Why did you choose to put up a temporary structure, like a tent, rather than building in bricks and mortar?
Yeah, the thing is, we didn't want to put them on the soil in the first place, so we had to lift them. But we're not allowed to have permanent structures, so we don't use cement or anything. So we're stuck to the wood. A lot of maintenance, but it's also comfortable.
And here's the thing that I remember from childhood.
Oh, the antlion.
These ant lions.
Well, it's one of the baby five.
The baby big five.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to sit around for hours. I can see that one going there now. Look at that.
Yeah,
enticing an ant.
Antlions are the larval stage of an insect, and they're ferocious hunters. Beware the ant that drops into a cone-shaped trap. Its chances to escape are minimal. These are the track marks of the antlion, moving from one burrow to the next. It's actually quite a distance for a little creature like that.
Shall we see if we can coax one of those things out?
no, we just need to get an ant.
An ant. One word of antlion. These are like little creatures from hell, miniature models for science fiction movies. And to small insects, they're deadly.
There's a lot of maneuverability at the back there. It's almost like most of the body is used for movement. I mean, it's got some frightening pinches in the front there.
I think they're in the way. That's why he walks backwards, because it's easier to bring it along.
Well, that's it. The whole front of the body is downward. It's hard to believe the immense difference between this larval stage and adults that resemble dragonflies. The diversity of felt types was a big motivator to include large sections of land around Loskop in the reserve, and many of the trees and other plants can be lifesavers if you know their qualities, and most of all, how to identify them.
Guys, this is known as a horn pod. And the reason why, if you look at it, it looks like a set of buffalo horns. But what's interesting about this, you'll pick one over here, it's got a white latex.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Quite profuse. And normally with the white latex, it shows you that it's poisonous.
Almost as a rule, any plant with a white latex-like sap should be viewed with caution. The sap of euphorbias irritates skin, can cause blindness, and have been known to cause the death of people who ingested it. The horn pod is the exception to the rule, advertising a poison that doesn't exist.
You know, if you go like that, you'll see it gets very sticky. And the animals love it. The kudus and everything feed on it, on these seeds. But if you're in trouble, you can use it as bubble gum, first of all.
If I'm in trouble, I use it as bubble.
Yeah, if you don't have water,
Oh, really?
yeah, it moistens your mouth, and so it keeps your mouth moist
Oh,
if you
okay.
don't have any water.
It's not a bad taste. It's a very fresh taste. It's like a green leafy. It's not bad at all.
The locals, they use that white latex for eye infection and also apparently for stomach ailments.
The vehicle tracks have become firm favourites among many of the animals of the Imbambala. Predators favour them, as moving along on the thick grass next to the roads is noisy. By sticking to the man-made tracks, they maintain the stealth that they need to stalk their prey. Guide Tim picks up a spoor from the tracker seat.
Yeah.
See, in the back pad there, it's got 3 lobes, 1, 2, 3. All cats have that, so we know it's a cat, it's not a dog or a hyena or something. And look at the toes, they don't really touch, they're more rounded. You don't see nail marks here either. That's a back
With retracted claws.
Yeah. Front foot's more rounded because of the weight of the shoulders.
Africa's largest cats disappeared from the Loskop Valley more than 250 years ago, and due to the dangers associated with keeping them, lions were not reintroduced to Imbambala. However, food is plentiful and leopards are thriving in the reserve. Exploring Imbambala requires a few days, as driving on the narrow tracks is, as a rule, slow. But then, why would one be in a hurry here? On a ridge a few meters from the road, several towering aloes are concentrated to a narrow band. These succulents are extremely bitter, and thorns protect them against browsers. However, their presence indicates the absence of one species that historically occurred here.
These aloes here are a very good indicator that there are no elephants in this reserve, because these plants are a delicacy in the elephant's diet.
But a little further on, we're lucky to find some very interesting fruits on a tree.
You know this tree, guys?
Several edible-looking fruits are hanging from a tree. They are strange greenish orange type fruits that look quite edible, but beware.
Okay, we know it as a monkey orange. I think some people in Natal call it a monkey apple. That's very
It
hard.
looks like a gem squash, doesn't it? It's woody. Tough,
Very
tough
extremely
skin.
hard. It's part of the strychnos or strychnine family, which means it's got that poison inside it. If you eat the pips and that, us humans, we don't eat it. You can eat the pulp around the pips, but the moment you start eating the pips, I think you're going to get sick.
But what does eat that?
The baboons love it.
And how do they
And
open
we're
it?
very lucky to find this tree with so many fruit on it, because you've seen all these trees around us, hardly any of them have any fruit on.
So obviously the digestive systems can handle that
Yeah.
strychnine.
And they actually use rocks to break it open. I'll show you, we'll break it open. See, it's very hard.
You played cricket at school.
These are tough fruits, not easy to break open.
Now, apparently, when it's ripe, this is very soft. You can eat the pulp around there, but not the pips.
Do you know custard apples? A bit like a custard apple.
But a custard apple is soft, man.
It's quite bitter. I've got 10 minutes.
Okay, then you can taste it again if you like.
Okay.
See, that's the stuff you're supposed to eat. But I think when it's ripe, it's also easier to separate the pips from,
Yeah.
from the pulp. But I wouldn't eat it unless I really have to. Yeah. I brought a few bones.
Where the Elephant River carved a deep ravine through the surrounding mountains, Kanongat, or Cannon Pool, guards its secret jealously. The late 1800s. British troops build up on the borders of the Transvaal Republic and the Free State. Their mission, to conquer the two independent Afrikaans countries, where rich deposits of diamonds and gold were discovered. On 11 October 1899, war erupted between the mighty British Empire and the Boers. For the British, this was a skirmish, a formality, and a quick fix to get the Afrikaner out of the way, to assure them access to the rich deposits of minerals and gemstones. But it soon turned into one of the most embarrassing wars for them, costing the British a mind-blowing £22 billion at current value. The Loskop region saw numerous heavy battles, and at some stage during the war, the Boers or Afrikaners ran out of ammunition. To prevent their armaments from falling into the enemy's hands, they dumped rifles and cannons into this ominous green pool that appears bottomless. From there, the name Kanongat, or cannon pool.
Okay, actually, you know what? I've seen a hippo in the water there where the rocks stop, you know, like that little running water there. Seen a hippo there. Seen a crocodile in the river there. Always see fish in the water. Yeah? And in the camp we have a photo of a monitor lizard that's lying on a rock down there and he's over 2 meters long.
Wow. On the way back to the camp, there are ample telltale signs of white rhino. A lot of spoor, but the big pachyderms of Loskop are hiding. And then on a plain, we see ears twitching, but the wind blows in their direction. Sadly, rhinos have come to associate the human smell with danger, and the two flee from us.
So we're downwind of these animals, are we?
The rhinos elude us, and it's only on our way out of Loskop that we find two munching away at green shoots on the exposed mudplain on the banks of the dam. White rhinos, unlike black rhinos, also require a reliable source of water, and they need a good amount of food to sustain them. An adult can consume more than 50 kilograms of fodder per day. We've managed to get quite close to them without the two of them being aware of us. The reason for this is simple. They have excellent hearing and superb smell, but they have really bad sight.
You've chosen a very good spot here to track them from, because they obviously can't, they're not reacting to us.
It's because they can't see us.
They can't see us. If we were on the other side, they could smell us, huh?
Cappy explains a massive heap of dung on the exposed floodplain.
This is called a midden, and it's made by the dominant bull.
During the warmer winter months, middens such as this one crawls with dung beetles. White rhinos have a fairly inefficient digestive system, and less than 7.5% of the food they ingest is either stored as fat or used to supply their required energy. They're thus eating machines, and their dung is mostly undigested grass.
It's obviously white rhino dung. You see it's full of grass, and it's about a day or two old. You can smell it. It doesn't smell. It smells like grass.
Freshly mown lawn.
Yeah.
No odor.
Loskop Dam offers a few good surprises. It's isolated, yet easy to reach, and much of its attraction lies in the diversity of life and the different way of doing things here. The highlight of it all, boat-based game viewing.
Now, this is the flip side of Africa. This is a unique little chunk of Africa, and it's usually a combination of people and place. People with vision and initiative to really make a beautiful place in Africa. For me, it's a bolt hole away from the big city, far away from the traffic lights.